What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today we're going to continue to talk about the book that Democracy brought you as we talk about the winner of DC's Round Robin contest with issue 4 of Robins. Now, as you will probably notice from looking at my channel, I didn't do a review for issue number 3. My bad, mea culpa. Sometimes I just, I take a break on one of the issues in a series. That happens sometimes, not because I don't want to review it. Sometimes I just don't get around to it, or sometimes I just don't want to do it. So, I mean, it really depends. But anyway, I read issue 4 and we're getting closer to the end, and I kind of feel like I know where this is going, but then again, if you go back and watch my review of the first issue, I kind of already figured where this was going to go also, so let's just kind of talk about what we have here in this particular thing. Now, to quickly sum up what happened in issue 3, there was, they presented in issue 2 that the Robins were fighting a bunch of, like, sidekicks to some of the more well-known heroes, but they weren't particularly good sidekicks, and then in issue 3, they finished up that fight, and then they were going to save, like, their gauntlets, the first, like, major villains who really tested them or whatever. They went to go and save them, and then come to find out Tim Drake didn't want to save them. He thought it was probably better just to let them die in a gas attack. So he got all pissed off. But then it was revealed at the end of the issue that it wasn't actually Tim Drake. It was actually this other chick who I'm just calling Jenny Wren, because she keeps singing that damn song. So anyway, that's who that was, and then we found out, well, Tim Drake was actually tied up. So they don't know that yet, but they probably should have been able to figure it out by the fact that he wasn't acting like himself. Anyway, let's just kind of jump into what we have here, because we see where we have Nightwing. It says he's in Bloodhaven, and he's confronting nervous, trigger-happy baby hackers in the illegal street market of Meadowdale Mall. And then in the other sister city of Gotham, Red Hood smashes through the faceless avatars of Dark Web deep coders on his way to Lieutenant Vire. And then Robin, Damian Wayne, is actually sending panicked Hive agents running for cover under a hail of sharp projectiles and withering insults. So, very cute, I guess. He says, it says, we've been on the same side in the past, these sons of the Batman and I, but more often the opposite. I know them, each to varying degrees, because basically the person who's narrating this is actually Anarchy. So he's saying, like, I've never seen them so unrelenting in their pursuit. Though they don't hunt together, each tears down anything and anyone who stands in their way. All of them seeking anarchy. Basically, they're doing all of this because they're trying to find him. So he says, but one thing is missing. The third to take the mantle. The Red Robin. And that's where we go over to Tim, who's actually still in captivity. And he's doing this thing where he's, like, kind of hyping himself up, kind of giving himself a little pep talk. Because what he's about to do to try and get out of the ropes is he dislocates his shoulder, which I know that has to be painful. I've never dislocated a shoulder, but I imagine it's probably very painful. So it's not really something I'm exactly, jonesing to try out anytime soon. But he does that. He manages to slip out of the ropes and shit. He goes over to this computer, and then he's saying, Jenny Wren, she says she's a Robin, the first Robin. But what kind of person trained by Batman would leave me alone with computers? Which is a pretty good point. So he says, gonna bring the Robins down on your stupid goth head, honey. The whole damn family. But then he hears, her whistling, I think. And he turns around right as she hits him upside the head with his own damn staff and shit. So he's starting to, like, try and crawl away, and he says, Jenny Wren, that's what you call yourself, from the old British nursery rhymes. She was sick, the Jenny in the poem. Robin tried to help her, and she wouldn't let him. So he called her a bold-faced jig, a liar, a blatant liar. So that's where she, like, slams his face down on the computer, like, keyboard and shit. She's like, of course, Tim Drake, like, we know how well read you are. It was in your gauntlet. So you also know, in those poems, it was Robin who dressed up and acted fancy. But plain little forgotten Jenny Wren was the one who actually got things done. So I guess that's fair enough. She does seem to be getting things done. And then we go over to Bruce, who's opening this like new place that apparently used to be a corrections dormitory, which I think is just a fancy way of saying like a jail. I don't really know. Anyway, so he's here, and I guess for some reason they're having this like central little conceit that apparently it's a very hot day. So he's saying he decided to do this in the morning because he thought it would be cooler, but that's not how it works. And he's saying he's not known for making the best choices. Anyway. He says, "This is a good choice, one of the best I've made. Wayne Enterprises is proud to announce a partnership with the Thomas Wayne Memorial Clinic to convert this old county corrections building into a children's mental health facility and hospital. Gotham is a hard place. It can weigh on shoulders, especially those of the young. We need to reach out to them, offer them a hand. Now, we're about to take particular notice of this man here in the red hat, but what I think we actually need to focus on is this blonde woman with her eyes too wide. I don't know how much meth she smoked before coming here, but this is more disturbing to me than he is. Anyway, so we see where he kind of like does that whole little thing that, you know, we kind of do down here in the South, you know, where usually you see it done with like a cowboy hat or whatever, but it's also done with like baseball caps and stuff where it's like you grab the brim and you just kind of, you know, my lady. Anyway, so Bruce kind of like loses his train of thought for a second. He's like, and then someone kind of like says, "Mr. Wayne," he's like, or they ask, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, sorry, it's just, you know, the heat." And then he asks if anyone has any questions. So that's kind of where we leave them for right now. We'll come back to what's going on with Batman later. But anyway, we see where Anarchy is running through these tunnels, and he's saying between Gotham and Bloodhaven are miles of abandoned subway tunnels that would have connected the two cities, but missed payments to corrupt officials meant the tunnels became nothing but a rotting home to rats, cockroaches, and bats. And then, of course, he runs right into Red Hood, who's telling him, like, it's the end of the line. But he tells him, "Step lightly, Red Hood. Beware the third rail," which is something... I've never lived in a city, let alone one with a... Well, I mean, I guess technically I live in one now, but it barely counts as a city. But I've never lived in a city that had a subway, but I've always known that that's a thing. You don't touch the third rail because that's the one that has the active electrical current that is very, very powerful, that will kill you if you touch it. So... that's where that's kind of coming from, just in case anybody out there is curious. I'm pretty sure just about everybody knows the whole thing with the third rail, but just in case you didn't, now you know. So we see where he continues running after he kind of incapacitates Red Hood for a second, and he says he has to keep moving, even with him down. While fleeing Red Hood, I found it easiest to multitask. Why escape one when you can escape all three at once? And that's where we see Nightwing and Damian come running in, and Damian's telling him, "You should go home, Nightwing. You don't have what it takes to deal with this kind of scum." And that's when Red Hood runs in and is like, "Isn't this embarrassing? Like a sitcom where everybody finds out they're dating the same girl. Long time no see, guys. Now step aside, beat down a-comin'."
But what are you doing?
Throwing sandbags, Dorothy. There's a hurricane a-coming.
A-comin'?
That's right. People only use the when a really big storm is a-coming or a-brewing. So grab a sack and start a-shoveling.
So... Anarchy's standing there and he says, "No matter what I did, where I went, who stood between us, you all found me. All that Batman training paid off for you, but I've battled the caped fascist enough times to have picked up a few things myself, such as always have a backup plan. I leave you to the cleansing flames." And then we see where these other two Anarchy, well, we're going to find out they're basically automatons, like robots, pop up and they start shooting fire at them. And of course, Red Hood, you know, takes out one with his guns, which I'm glad they gave him his guns back. A lot of people don't like him having guns. I am not of that mindset. I like Red Hood having guns. He's not a hero. He's not like the other Robins, so I don't need him to be non-lethal. He can be lethal. I like that. It's refreshing. It's different. We need it. Calm down. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Anyway, so Nightwing throws one of his Eskrima sticks at the other one and, you know, incapacitates that one as well. And then he's saying, "The world is sick. The elite are the virus. Anarchy is the cure." And that's when Damian kind of like gets the jump on him and is telling him, "You must be so proud how easily you turn teenagers into terrorists." And then Anarchy's like, "Ah, there's the motive. The devotees of anarchy. You blame me for their actions." And then he kind of like clotheslines Damian in the chest or in the stomach, really. And he says incorrectly. Basically, he's saying it wasn't me who caused them to do what they did. But Nightwing is saying, "Lies upon lies. The Money Spider site spews your manifesto, Mr. Neg, and his acolytes enacted your canned rebellion." So he's like, "No, the DOA is nothing but an internet bastardization of sound bites and screen caps aimed at the disaffected and ignorant. A good individual citizen is informed, and there is nothing anarchy despises more than disinformation.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Anyway, so Red Hood comes up and like punches him in the face, and as he's doing that, Anarchy's saying, I've tried to find this fake money spider, but their encryption level defies even my skills, and I've wasted valuable time being harassed by you aggravated idiots. So that's when Red Hood puts a gun to his temple. It's like, you know, you speak out of the side of your face an awful lot, man. Hell, I bet you wouldn't even notice a new hole. Let's find out. But before he can aerate his head, all of a sudden they see this bright flashbang type of thing, which kind of like incapacitates all the Robins and allows Anarchy to run away. And that's when we see Spoilers walking up. She was the one who did it. And she's saying, Lonnie, I'm going to need you to run. Don't look back until you hit your Ayn Rand cave or wherever you're holding up now. And don't forget your face, basically his mask. So that's when they're all just kind of asking, like, what the hell? Like, what were you doing? And she says that she grabbed, like, her dad's belt on the way out. And that was apparently a phosphorus grenade. It was that or clue gas, which I don't know that much about Clue Master. I don't know what the hell Clue Gas is, but I think it's probably best I don't ask too many questions. Anyway, Red Hood says, no, not the recycled supervillain crap, the part where you let a goddamn cult leader scrub off. So that's when she's like, you're calling me out? Like, really? As if I did something wrong? You all went full berserker on these anarchies, the robots again. And she's asking Nightwing, is this your stick? Did you even know they were mannequins? What if they had been followers? And he just doesn't even answer. He's like, well, they weren't. He says, Stephanie, and no offense, but no one asked you. Red Hood says, yeah, and your sympathies towards masked nuts are questionable at best, Clue Master Jr. So she's like, all right, fine, take it from an expert. Anarchy is a lot of things, but a liar isn't one of them, and I can prove it. So that's when Nightwing says, what Anarchy is getting a head start. I'm going after him. And Red Hood's like, finally, something we agree on. But then Damien, uncharacteristically, starts laughing at all of them, which of course kind of takes them by surprise, and Red Hood is the one who's like, okay, creepy. I don't like that at all. So he starts giving them the rundown and says, don't you all see what this is? Anarchy represented a simple idea, a manipulator, a bad influence. You saw the DOA members ruined by his teachings, and so you lashed out, ran headfirst looking for something to punch, even if the evidence didn't line up. Because ever since that night in the cemetery when Tim Drake threw away his staunch beliefs and morality in an instance of rage, you have wondered if you yourself have served as a poor role model, making your life up until now a lie. And then he says to Red Hood, you have questioned if your own actions have sullied something good, wondered if you were a stain on a pure legacy. And he says, like, basically he knows because he's been asking himself those same questions, when the question that they should have been asking is, where has Tim Drake gone? Which is a good question. Like, he ran off, he was acting uncharacteristically not like himself, and nobody went looking for him. Like, none of y'all have been searching. Y'all just tried to take down this whole anarchy ring. Okay, so Spoiler is asking Dick, like, where he's going. He says he's going home. And he says, I bought a new air conditioner. If we're going to hear your new case evidence, Steph, let's do it in comfort. So that's when Spoiler tells Damien, like, you know, thank you for basically, you know, siding with me so that they would actually hear me out. To which he says, you have a unique viewpoint among Robins, Brown. Unlike the rest of us, you started on the bottom. She's like, you just couldn't let it be a nice thing, huh? Or you couldn't be nice about it, huh? So that's when we go over to his apartment and we see where he's saying, where basically Damien is telling him, like, yeah, you know, it certainly livens up the place because he had to cover up the blood stain from when Del Kane got shot in his apartment. So he's saying, like, I'm not sure what it says about me that I waited until I had to cover up a blood stain to get some furniture. I'll tell you what it says about you. You're a dude. Like, that's a very normal thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff here that I have in my apartment that I did not get until I absolutely needed it. That's just how we roll. You know, we're not very forward planning, where it's very much like, oh, I need something. All right, let me go get it. That's the way that we do. I mean, I don't know. It's probably not everybody. You know, there are probably some guys who are, you know, a little more forward thinking, I guess. I'm just not one of them most of the time. Every once in a while, but it's very rare. Very rare. Anyway. So this is where we see they're about to sit down at the table because basically Steph is ready to present them with evidence. And she's saying that, you know, after, you know, that night, she kept thinking of the neophyte Lydia Arbuckle from the Anarchies and how she saw something basically in her eyes, regret, confusion, but she couldn't tell what. So she went to go see her in Blackgate. And then when she showed up, that apparently she said Mr. Neg had shown her the light, but she had no idea who I was. Which is kind of strange because, as she said, didn't remember me, even though I jabbed her in the face with a staff. I thought maybe she was following some lawyer advice. Then I saw it in her eyes again. Something. Literally something, just for a second. An actual light. And then right before the guards came along, she grabbed her and whispered, "Did I win?" So that's when she takes the initiative to, you know what, let me go check out her apartment. And she's saying basically the feds had already taken pretty much everything, like her computer and everything else. There wasn't much left except dirty clothes and a stuffed dog. And this is one thing that I find kind of weird. Like, if they had picked up this dog, they probably would have been able to find this, because she's saying, I remembered how Tim said the Anarchies had started out innocently as a fan board for the video game Puppy Larceny and its creator Cormac Dodge. Hidden in the dog was this box, and that's what I'm saying. If they had picked up this dog at any point, they probably would have been able to feel like there's a box in here and cut it open. So it says, addressed to her from Eldon Shaw, to which Jason is saying, aka Mr. Neg, and he's like, what? I checked. I felt a little bad that I blew the guy up, okay? So that's when she pulls out the box that she found, and she says before he died, the story goes that Cormac Dodge was working on an immersive gaming platform that included implanted narratives. And that's where she says Lonnie was being honest. He doesn't run the Anarchies. Mr. Neg controlled them, literally, by using this device to implant a chip into their cerebral cortexes. Lydia thought she was playing a game, so that's when Jason's like, oh, well, I guess I feel less bad. Anyway, Damien's sitting there like, implanted narratives. She says those junior super criminals, the group that they were fighting in the last issue, says they believe they really were the villains they appeared as, using the profile data from Batman's records. And that's when, you know, Dick basically says, let me guess, Batman identified the material. This Dodge guy's final deal was made with a company called Triplux Incorporated for holographic suits. And she's like, yep, narrative and physical escape. But Mr. Neg fell on a bomb. That means someone else has to be behind this. And that's what she says. Whoever this is, I think it's personal. And evidence backs me up. There are 4 more narrative drives in here. And that's when Jason's like, Operation Redbreast 1 through 4. To which Damien's like, yeah, this is where, you know, Drake would remind us a Redbreast is a Robin. Which, I mean, I guess that's what he would have done. But thanks for pointing it out that way. Anyway, Dick is saying there are 5 Robins. There aren't 5 drives. So Stephanie, looking, I don't even know what this face is, says, exactly. I think someone wants us to play, and the prize is finding out where Tim is. So Damien's like, yeah, that sounds like a trap. And Jason's saying, well, you would know, Ninja Boy. But all of a sudden at that moment, Dick gets a message on his phone, to which Damien's very much annoyed. He's like, now, Grayson? He's like, it's Bloodhaven PD. Nightwing is still helping investigate a murder that happened in Dick Grayson's home, remember? So he says it's a text from Detective Svoboda. She says the autopsy on Del Kane showed the projectile that killed him wasn't a bullet. It was a stone. And that's when Jason's saying, you know, I was almost starting to understand this, and then came the Death Rocks. But Dick tells him, no, it's a very specific term, that it's the kind of ammunition used in a sling. So this is where he kind of like recaps for them that he used to use a sling when he first became Robin, and that when he met Tim basically asked him, like, you know, can you teach me how to use it? I want to be as much like you as possible. He says he couldn't quite get the hang of it, so he decided to do some research. He found out the Roman legion were so good with slings, they could fire stones as fast as bullets from a gun. They could take off the top of someone's head with one, and I'd actually really like to see that. I'm not even gonna lie, that sounds pretty badass, very metal. I would love to see someone get decapitated by a sling. Maybe that's just me, but it sounds interesting. Anyway, Dick says he told me he wasn't going to use it anymore. He said getting good with it was too dangerous. He didn't ever want to take someone's life, no matter who they were. So he goes over to Steph and he says, this is personal. This is about the Robins. Someone wants us to play a game. We play. So he basically tells her, go ahead, hit me with one of the things. He says, show me the light. And then we see where he kind of has a little bit of an adverse reaction to it, as you might expect. Now, this is where we go back over to Batman, and we get a little bit more from him, where he's saying, Bat computer record log. Remote drone photos inconclusive. Whoever that was in the press corps disappeared into the crowd, became someone else. The questions of how the profile data works along with the hard light structures are moot. The construction, the application, it's definitely SKP tech. The timing is too convenient to be coincidental, but the pieces don't fit together yet. The chaotic veneer is masking the motivations beneath. I need perspective, but Alfred is gone. The JLA are still suspicious at best after the data hack and my accusations that it came from the Hall. I'm not sure I should even trust my own security. And we can see him being very much sad, Batman. Anyway, he just kind of says the names of all the Robins, and he stops, and he's like, no. No partners this time. Not when Cormac Dodge, the escape artist, is involved. So we can kind of see where we have Batman here in his original, like, first appearance look with the purple gloves and everything when he was fighting him and shit. So we're going to see what happens with that. But we go back over to Tim, who's still, you know, in captivity. He wakes up and he's saying, I figured it out, you know, your game, why I'm here, why I'm alive. So she's saying, well, I suppose it was only a matter of time. To which he says, you're the hacker who got into the Bat computer. You stole information because these days, that's all that matters. You used our gauntlets against us. But there's something else there you didn't get. Something you need. You're good, just not that good. You knew I created belfry backdoors into Batman's mainframe, and the world's greatest detective was none the wiser. You've read my file, so you know I can do it, but you also know I'm not going to betray Bruce or Steph or Jason or Dick or even Damian, ever. She's like, oh, aren't you sweet? She says, you already did a few days ago. You enthusiastically burst out of your chair and got right on into the mainframe. Thought you were sending a message to your friends. That's the thing about my game. You don't always know you're playing. So that's where we go back over to Dick, and we see he's waking up. And this is basically putting him back into when he was in that Grayson series, where it was just him trying to infiltrate the organization Spiral. So we see where he's sitting there with Helena, the fake huntress, not the real one. And so we're seeing, you know, them having this conversation where she's basically telling him, like, now's not the time to be asleep. He says, I know, just been a rough week, Elena. She says, you're a spy, Agent 37. They're all rough weeks. Do you at least feel more useful? And he's like, well, not really. I had the most stressful dream. So he's already believing that he's in, like, a different type of thing. So I get the feeling, as I've mentioned before in the past, when I first started reading this series, when I first started reviewing it, I get the feeling that Jenny is actually suffering from something like this as well, where she's been convinced that she was somehow like the first Robin because she was somehow, you know, made susceptible to this. She was put under the effects of this same technology, and she's just kind of been living that out. Like maybe it warped her brain to a point where she really believes she was the very first Robin, but it's not actually a thing. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 98% sure that's exactly where this is going. So I mean, it just kind of makes sense. I always kind of figured that's where it was going. Either she was just deranged or she was under the effect of something. And now that we know there is a technology that apparently can do basically what I said, that's going to end up being the ultimate like explanation for what's going on here, why she believes this and why she's doing it. So the only thing that really remains to be seen is if she's actually in control of her own actions, or is there someone else controlling her? Because I kind of also get the feeling it's something like that. Somebody subjected her to this technology, and now she is acting sort of her own free will, but still in a way that benefits somebody else. So the only thing that remains to be seen is who is it that benefits from her doing all of this. It's not that great of a story. I mean, you have all of the Robins working together. And I realize a lot of people, because this was a contest they did on Twitter. So, I mean, this is literally the type of story that Twitter would want to see. And as you can see, it's not that good of a story, which is why I need comic companies to stop listening to Twitter, because this is what they chose. And this is not a good story. It really isn't. It's just, it's barely even a mystery. You know what I mean? It's barely entertaining. That's why I didn't really why I didn't really feel like making a review for the last issue. I was like, okay, if something else, like some other major development in the actual story comes up, then I'll go ahead and, you know, talk about it. So here I am with this. There are only 2 more issues. It's a 6-issue miniseries. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do a review for 5, or I might just wait for 6, or I might do neither. We have no way of knowing just yet. I don't even know. So we'll find out what happens going on, but I think that's going to do it for me here. So I don't know if anybody out there has read this. If you have, share your thoughts with me. If you haven't and you just heard about it now from watching my video, share your thoughts with me anyway. But that's going to do it for me. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like the video. Make sure you're subscribed. You got the notifications on. That way you know when I have new videos coming out. If you'd like to share the video, you know I appreciate that. I definitely do. But if you're done here, then go and read a book. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.